So that's quite a lot of people for such a crappy title, but don't worry, I believe the presentation will be fun enough. So I'm just going to go over a couple of points as quick as I can, because there's a lot of stuff to speak about together, and the internationalization and the architecture and so on. For those of you who were here last year, I talked in detail about the big data architecture, but today I'm going to focus more on the overall architecture and the several issues and challenges we have to actually launch the product. So together, I don't know if many of you know about it. We haven't launched it publicly yet, but it's basically a new platform to challenge banks and to try to do finances in a whole different way. It's basically built around blockchains and big data for the informational part. And what it relies on is, it gives the basic products you need for a bank, for your daily management of your banking functions, which is basically a core account and a debit card. Besides that, we are building a marketplace so that you can choose what products you need from different banks or from fintechs and so on. So you can sort of tailor your own bank in your own way and hire the products you actually want. And the third stage, and I will talk later about the first one, is to create a financial model beyond fiat currencies. And by that I mean that our common economy is not only about euros or dollars and so on, but it's also about gasoline, it's about gigas, it's about electricity. So we've created a platform where we can tokenize assets and actually create an exchange where you can trade those assets. And for instance, let's say that you spend every month $100 or 100 euros in gasoline. You could actually, together with a lot of users, pre-buy this gasoline with a discounted amount. And actually then later trade it for electricity or whatever you need by the end of the month. So that's what we're trying to build with together. I'm going to just play a short video. It's just a 3-minute video, so you can have a more overall view.
Imagine a bank for people like you, created in a collaborative way by people like you. Imagine the result. Download the app and sign up with a European ID or passport. Get an IBAN and a debit card in 3 minutes and discover the economy beyond euros, pounds and dollars. Obtain a global vision of your finance, adding accounts from other banks and controlling them all from one unique app. Discover not only how much you spend and on what, but also how much money you will have daily for the following year. Activate automatization of your economy through artificial intelligence. Your telephone bill is 26% higher than usual. Do you want to check it?
Yeah, please.
Collaboratively buy assets with users from the whole of Europe to obtain savings. And when you want, you can pay with them, sell them, or trade them for other assets. Access a global offer of investment products, loans or insurances provided by fintechs and banks from around Europe. Send money off to your friends through contacts or through your favorite app. Point your card against the balance you want in each moment. Forget about the abusive commissions. Join the revolution and help us to reshape the future. More people, less banking. Together Bank, the first collaborative bank.
So we are currently in an alpha stage. We are just having like a very small, not even beta, but a private testing. We will be launching the private beta after summer. And the public launch for Europe is scheduled for first Q of 2019. So if you want to view the video again, you can check it out later at the web. I know you couldn't hear the first part. So I'm going to go over the general architecture. We basically have 3 main components or 3 main parts within our architecture. The first part is all the backend, which is based around microservices. It runs on Spring Cloud. We are using the Netflix OSS and Kubernetes. And basically, the different services we have, all of those, I won't get into much detail, but there are two parts, as I was saying. Okay, so we are tying it up with Rabbit on real time with our big data infrastructure, as well as, excuse me, as well as with the blockchain architecture part of the whole architecture. So it runs on Amazon, on EC2. It's a pretty common infrastructure architecture. I won't get into much detail. If you want to know more about it later, you can check it out with Rafa. He's our lead architect, and he will be at our stand later. So as for the blockchain part, we've done some tweaks around Ethereum. We are using a private Ethereum blockchain, and we've tweaked it a bit. We've deployed it in Kubernetes. We do store the private keys because it's all managed internally. And what we've been able to do is, first, we've gotten rid of master nodes, so there we don't have a single point of failure within our blockchain net. And the other cool thing we've done is that whenever you need a new node, and this runs in Kubernetes, so it auto-scales, we actually put together all the history of the blockchain, so it doesn't have to replicate once it comes up. So it's way faster to do it this way. The other tweaks we've done, for example, is that miners don't get mining continuously. They actually stop mining and only mine whenever we have a transaction, which is, it doesn't work that way in the public Ethernet blockchain. So this is the part we're using for all the transactional part. Whenever there's a movement, whenever there's any kind of currency that is going from one account to the other, the synchronization with the real world and so on, all of that is done in blockchain, as well as the blockchain ID, where we store all the information of the users. So the users actually have detailed control about what they want to give out to different fintechs or to different banks whenever they hire a new product. So everything is done through blockchain ID and blockchain for the transactional part. As for the big data architecture, we have two main layers, the batch layer and the speed layer. I'll get into a bit more detail now, but the main technologies we are using is Rabbit. If you were here last year, we were using Kafka. We changed it to Rabbit. It seems to be way more reliable. We are using Postgre for the relational databases, mainly used at the backend part. Cassandra is our core database. We have 3 different instances of Cassandra, but the biggest one is the core part of our informational system. Scala, of course, for everything related to display layers, Spark, machine learning, and so on. Tableau, we use it for reporting, and the way we use it is that, as you can see, this is the whole architecture. This is the backend. It communicates through Rabbit in real time. This is the main Cassandra. We have a lot of machine learning algorithms. Probably the most important ones are, we have a predictive model through machine learning so that we can have a projection of all your finances in the different categories that we have in PFM, for instance, shopping or education and so on. And they will be projected for the following year on a daily basis for each single user. We couldn't do that without big data technologies. We also have 3 AI algorithms for credit scoring. One is based on neural networks, the other one on random forest trees, and the third one on random forest, and the third one based on gradient boosted trees. And what we have here is 3 main parts. Well, the bottom one is just for logs. We are using Elasticsearch and Kibana for managing our logs and so on. But we do have an internal instance of Tableau. This is for back office reports and for support and so on. And the one you can see here is the kind of API we are giving to the different fintechs and the different providers that we have within together, so they can better analyze the data. They have their own instance of Cassandra if they want to use it. They have raw data, and they have a Tableau instance where They can create their own reports and so on and access the information. So for the logs part, as I was saying, it's basically based on Elasticsearch and the reporting layer based on Kibana. Now for the integration, I think it's pretty common to use Jenkins, which is what we're using, built on top of Amazon EMR. This is basically the flow we have for the Jenkins continuous integration model. And what the talk is really about is how did we manage to get from a product to an actual business in production. It is launching in Europe. It will be launched worldwide, hopefully by 2020. So the main timeline, as you probably cannot see, we started out in 2016. We've gone through a lot of stages. We started building the big data layer first with all the machine learning algorithms, so on. Later on, we moved to blockchain. We've already done some testing integrating with Halkas. We are already integrated with a third party to have our own debit cards through Visa. So what we did is, in terms of methodologies, we started out with our MVP, and we went out with a waterfall approach. If you want to do something that you completely know the scope, that you know the times you need, that you really know all the tasks and all the steps you need to take in order to develop that part, a waterfall methodology in the end is way more efficient in terms of time and in terms of costs. So we went through a waterfall up to the MVP. Once we were done with the MVP, we moved to agile methodologies, Scrum to be more precise. And this is just a general waterfall, not an actual one. We are now through different teams in a Scrum methodology. And Scrum works great whenever you're in an environment like ours where we need to change priorities and we need a lot of things going on and not everything is really defined. So that's what we're doing. Now, this is the part where, at least for myself and for most of the team, we weren't so used to, which is we are software developers. We've done a lot of projects. We've helped a lot of clients. The thing is that whenever you're trying to build something that is mostly a bank, even though we don't have a banking license, there are a lot of things going on besides just the product and just the development and just getting it to work. And I'm going to start with you the organizational chart and different functions that we have throughout the organization. And this is what we are implementing now. The team will grow and different procedures will mature during the alpha and beta stages. But for us, this was critical. I mean, in the end, it's not only about the software and about having everything up and running. In the end, it's about creating a business and creating all the different teams that actually compose the together team. So this is our organizational chart. All these part is the development teams. We have a big data team, back end, blockchain, and front end. As for the front end, we are mobile only. We don't have a web interface, so it's just mobile, iOS, and Android. We have different Scrum Masters for the team. And an architect right now is Rafa, which is responsible for defining the whole architecture. Now, besides that, which is what we probably most of us used to, we have a kind of big team just for the product owner. UI, UX depends on these teams so that it defines everything that needs to be developed and all the different functionality. The product owner reports to the board directly, which we take the biggest decisions, or at least the strategic ones. And this whole part here has nothing to do with development. This is everything we needed to set up in order to move from the product to an actual business and an actual service. And as you can see, well, you cannot see the arrows very well, but once each development is completed, or each phase or each stage, it goes through a team of continuous integration. This is the part that we are mining through the Jenkins. But before that, it goes through a series of QA testing. We have a functional QA, which is basically making sure that everything that is in the docs defined by the product owner in maximum detail actually works as intended. A technical QA, which is basically making sure that all the different methodologies within each language and within each component of the system is built as it's used to, as it should be built. And another production QA, just to make sure that everything is correctly integrated. So once its stage is completed, it moves on to our system team, and everything runs on Amazon. So right now is a team. Well, right now is just one extraordinary guy. We are supposed to be having 3 more people coming in. We need 24/7 support, which is something that needs to be taken care of. And adjacent to that team, we have a security team, which is this one top. And security is probably one of the things that can mess your project the most. We took security into account since we started the first developments. I know a lot of cases which they've developed a product, they've put it up to production, and once they've started their audit testing for security, they've had to rebuild the whole product from the ground up. So this is probably one of the biggest challenges that we have from building something that works, that we can test and so on. But passing security audits is something that you should really take into account before you actually start developing any piece for your software. And as for support, we have first level of support. This level is not within the scope of the CTO. It has its own room. Right now, we're just testing it with not many people. This is the first line of support, which is they have a questionnaire with common answers, and they can check user movements. For instance, if you get a charge twice in a comment, they can check it out and make sure that everything is all right and so on. If it goes to a technical need, it moves to the next level of support, which is the second level of support. This is your typical room with a lot of screens, people that are continuously monitoring all the logs of the system, making sure that everything is running smoothly and is the way it's supposed to be running. So, if the incidents that they get is actually a software-related incident, it moves to the DevOps team. You all know about DevOps team, so I won't get into much detail about that one. And all around that part, we have DBAs. This is just for managing the huge databases that we are managing, and data scientists. And I really didn't find that useful, the data scientist figure, up until this project. And the thing here is that we have a lot of things that need to get done. And for instance, the main one is AML, anti-money laundering. And being able to get deep into the data and be able to find the different patterns and recognize the different alerts for anti-money laundering is something that really a data scientist came extremely useful. So we are doing a lot of things also in terms of data science. For instance, we're getting insights for the different client segmentations that we have, and basically analyzing the way that the clients can behave. It will be pretty useful for creating new products that fit better the clients that we have in the different segments. So besides that, this is just the C-level. There's the COO, the CTO, CFO, CPO, and so on. We have a legal team, a marketing team, a human resources team. So yeah, this is basically our organizational chart and the different functions that we are doing within the business. And as for the last part, and I'm probably going very quick. Let me just take time. We're good. So I wanted to share with you the different challenges that we've gone on, both from the business side and technical side. And as for the business, the first issue was the funding. And for those of you that have a business or are close to your business, this is probably one of the biggest stones in the road, which is how do you get money to do what you want to do. In this case, I can assure you it's a lot of money. So since we are building this using blockchain, and the first stage, which is the alpha stage, I was talking before about the financial marketplace and the non-financial marketplace with the asset tokenization. Actually, the first part, the first stage, and this is where we are at the alpha stage, is being able to pay with cryptocurrencies. Right now, only with Ether. We'll go to Bitcoin soon later this year. But yeah, right now we have a debit card that you can point to your Ether balance. You can just you have an Ether wallet within the app. It's just a matter of sending the Ethers to your wallet. You can actually go to an e-commerce, point to your Ethers, and swipe your cards. They will be exchanged in real time, and it will be withdrawn from your Ether balance. So since this project is really built around blockchain and it will have a lot of good synergies, we've decided to go to an ICO. It won't be a public ICO, so and luckily for those of you who want to participate, it won't be open to the public. But going to an ICO made a lot of sense for us, since the first people which will try and test the application will be people around the blockchain community. It really makes sense to start building this community from right now. We do have a Telegram account, and if you want to join, there's I don't know if any of you know about Parachute, which is a platform where you sign up, and if you join the community, they give you free tokens for different projects. This project is in Parachute, so if some of you want free tokens and start getting into the community, please feel free to do so. It's a very nice community. But yeah, launching an ICO, it's been a really pain in the well. We've gone through a lot of legal issues. I don't know if you know about the current state of ICOs, but in the United States, the SEC is being extremely tough. In Europe, they're trying to make it legal. In the end, I believe that funding through ICOs or token sales will be something that is just another way of funding within the society. But right now, it's been quite tough. I also believe that in the end, banks and people will have cryptocurrencies just as they have right now, fixed income or different shares and so on. So it will be part of everyone's portfolio, but right now, until it becomes legal, or at least legalizes everything, it will be very tough. And here it comes to the second part, which is the legal side of it. And we've had a lot of issues, not only on the legal side for the funding and the ICO, but also for the different licenses that we need in order to do this. And you're probably aware that the banking system is a very close one, it's a very lobbyist one, and it's a very tough to actually compete with banks. And we are getting an electronic money license. With this license, you're supposed to be able to have an IBAN and to have an account, so you really don't need a banking account unless you want to invest your liabilities, the deposits that you get from the client, which is something that we are not doing. So in that sense, we can be safer than a bank, since we cannot lose our clients' money. We won't touch that part. But yeah, fighting with the banks and getting these kind of licenses, we've had a lot of stones within the road around that part. And for getting, as I was saying, for getting a project like this into a production environment and actually running it, the legal part takes way more than you can ever anticipate. So it's something that we should have done earlier. We've done early enough, so we are still in our schedule. So as for the third challenge, it has to do with customer acquisition. The good part is that people are now more aware that there are alternatives to traditional banking. There is FinTonic for the PFM. You probably know about Revolut for their debit cards with great exchange rates. There is Curve, or you can aggregate different cards. And there are a lot of new neobanks, such as Number 26 and Fidor and Monzo and so on. So for that part, since we haven't been the first ones trying to create a new neobank, part of the road has been open for us. But getting new clients is something that is extremely hard. And what we've done, as I was explaining earlier, is try to tackle first the crypto community. The crypto community is eager to have a card that you can use to actually just tie together your real fiat world and your cryptocurrencies world. And the next issue, and that's the one that we are going to have by next year, is about customer growth. So we are trying to base the whole product around a network growth, which is basically that people like the product and they start making references from one another. WhatsApp is probably the biggest example on network effect. WhatsApp was created by a couple of guys that just couldn't communicate between BlackBerry and iPhone, so they decided to create their own chat. And they didn't have any publicity, they didn't advertise it anywhere. So just by the network effect, it actually grew up until what it is now. So yeah, the customer growth that we are trying to achieve will be done through network effect. You can read a lot online about network effects and how it works and how you can build your model around it. So let me go to the technical challenges that we have. The first one is third-party dependencies. And everyone that has had any dependence outside of their own team has probably suffered with that part. We started the project trying to go with a banking party for having a partnership with them and having the accounts with them and the debit cards and so on. And banks are extremely slow developing and extremely slow integrating with third parties. So after 4 months, we had all our parts completely developed and were on time to integrate with them, and they hadn't passed their legal team. So we had to drop that part. We went to another partner, which is the ones we are with right now, which is just a company that has an electronic money license. And we were supposed to have integrated with them by December. And we are finishing the integration right now. And again, it didn't depend on us. We were ready to go in December, and it took us almost 6 additional months to be able to fully integrate with them. So yeah, third-party dependencies is something that you cannot control, and you should not infer that their developing pace is the same as your own, because this is probably with the main point that can throw away your project if you don't plan on it or you have alternative plans. As for the production team, I talked earlier about the organizational chart and different functions and so on. This is something I had no idea about. It's something that I've never done myself. I've always been in software development, but once the software was ready, it was just a matter of sending it to whoever they told me, and he'll make sure it gets up and running and so on. So creating these kinds of teams is something that was beyond my knowledge a couple of years ago. So yeah, it really took us quite some time to put it all together and to find the right people. We are hiring a lot of people, so if you want to send us your CV, please feel free to do so. So the third point was security. I also mentioned this earlier, but security can be a really tough point. And if you want to go to final clients and to retail customers and not only B2B and so on, which is easier in a sense, security can really be a really tough point. Luckily for us, our architects is something that was very conscious about and really made sure that everything was on point. But it's something that I've been in other projects which had to be completely rebuilt because they didn't pass core security tests, and the architecture was actually not good enough for what they were intended to do. And the fourth point is scalability. And thankfully, big data and cloud services solve most of these issues. But again, this is something that if you don't plan ahead and you just say, okay, I'm going to develop this part in PHP or whatever other traditional technology and just put it out in a server and up and running. It might work for 100, 200 users, but it's something that you will have to rebuild once you get to a certain threshold. And since we started the project, we wanted to build something that was cheap whenever we had few clients, let's say up to 1,000 clients, but something that we wouldn't have to redo once we grew and once we passed the 1 million users point. So this is why we chose blockchain, why we chose these big data architectures, and why we built everything on cloud and on virtual services premises and so on. So yeah, those have been the main challenges, both from a business and technical point of view. And if you have any questions or want me to get into something into more detail or whatever, I believe we still have some minutes to do so.